Biomoda is a biotech company. We're doing cancer diagnostics. It's based on a proprietary molecular molecule that binds preferentially with cancer cells and fluoresces red under ultraviolet light. We're starting with a lung cancer test because the survivability rates for lung cancer are dismal. Only 15% of the people survive 5 years. 60% die in the first year of being diagnosed. And it was shown in the New England Journal of Medicine. There was a study done a few years ago, said that if lung cancer is caught in stage 1, survivability rates go from 15% for 5 years to 92% for 5 years. So that's a really significant increase, and that's what we're trying to do, is get into that, to do that market, to be the screening, the front-end screening tool for lung cancer. We collect sputum, which is the deep lung fluid that people cough up, put it on microscope slides, incubate it in a formulation with this chemical compound. It's called SciPath. We've trademarked it as SciPath. And then look at it under a microscope with an ultraviolet light and an image capture system and look for red fluorescing cells. So we're just finishing up our phase 2 clinical trial. We embedded our clinical trial into a screening program. We've been screening veterans for lung cancer, and we've been funded by the state of New Mexico to do that. We got $1.65 million from the state over the last 2 years, a government contract, to screen veterans for lung cancer. We've screened veterans that have smoked for 20 years. And veterans actually, as a population, have a 25% higher risk of lung cancer than the general population, so they're actually a high-risk group. So we've been able to subsidize our clinical trial work with a successful screening program. And in fact, several other states right now are looking into doing expanding and doing the same thing for their veterans in their states because it's been so successful. So that'll allow us to go into our phase 3 trial with several other locations and government contracts to subsidize our clinical trial work, while at the same time saving veterans' lives. We've actually saved a number of lives throughout this screening program already. So we're actually starting with our lung cancer diagnostic, but the assay itself will work on any cell sample. So as we move into our phase 3 trials on our lung cancer, we're going to start doing our phase 1 validation ones on other cancers as well. Breast cancer, using a ductal lavage technique for collecting a sample. It's just basically different sample collection protocols fed into the same assay. Cervical, using the cervical brushings that are used now. Colorectal with a stool sample. For bladder cancer, urine. Circulating tumor cells using blood. So we're going to have a suite of assays developed off of this. For our lung cancer assay, the markets are pretty substantial. There's a high correlation between lung cancer and smoking. And about 85 to 90% of lung cancer cases come from smoking. And there are 90 million current and former smokers in the United States, 215 million current smokers in Europe, and 31 million current smokers in Japan. And the first world countries are basically our initial market because not only do they have the cancers and the medical infrastructure, but they have the reimbursement infrastructure and things as well. So, and those are substantial markets. Our market penetration we're looking at in our financial projections is about 1%, less than 1% of those markets over the next 3 years, and that gets us into hundreds of millions of dollars of sales. There are CPT codes, reimbursement codes we did a study that are in place between $75 and $175 an assay. We're pricing ours at $100 for our financial projections. And about $50 are in our costs, and so about $50 per assay fall to a gross profit line. We're going for a PMA Class 3, full-blown regulatory approval. We're at the end of our phase 2 clinical trials. We'll submit a pre-ID to the FDA with that data, get their feedback. We did one before we started our phase 2, so their input was in our phase 2 study. We've been in contact with them, and we'll do the same before we start our phase 3. We've picked our multi-sites that we're going to have for our phase 3 study, and we expect that study will take to the end of 2010, and then we'll submit that data to the FDA. We're also now starting on a parallel path of going after our CE mark in Europe, and that's been basically market-driven. We were contacted by the National Horizon Services, which is part of the National Health Services of England, the UK, and they inquired when our technology might be available, when our assay would be available in England. And what the National Horizon Service does is look for promising technologies and things that are out on the horizon and when they might be available and incorporated into their health system. So with that, market sort of pull, we got Quintiles involved, and we're working with Quintiles Europe on obtaining our CE mark and also doing market access studies in the big 5 European countries and about 10 other ones that to see where the best places to start are.